Yeah. Welcome to the bi-monthly South African Leadership Gentlemen's Club Leadership Lecture. Uh, this we have every second week of the month. As you all know, it's a lecture that comes out of the founding pillars of the club, which is mental liberation of the South African man's mind and the boy child, and the family in general. That is including our mothers, our aunties, our sisters, our wives, uh, the women and partners in our lives. So welcome once again. Today we've got the most important and incredible topic of discussion, which is our destiny, our choice, which is choices that we make, and our destiny. Choices become destiny. Whatever you make in your life becomes where you're going. So we have a most incredible speaker today. He's the Archbishop. He's of a church, presiding bishop, not Archbishop. He is a business leader. He's a farmer. He's everything you will hear as I go along to read his biography. His name is Leadership Mandlazi, Lucky Mandlazi. So before I get started, I once again want to welcome everyone to this lecture, and just quickly to give you the background of SALGC, those who are here on Zoom live and those who are Facebook live. I would quickly just give you a background of what the South African Leadership Gentlemen's Club is all about. We are a national MPO for a boy, child, and men throughout the corners of the Republic of South Africa. And our purpose really is to develop every single one of us into leadership, because truly speaking, God has made us with all the equipments, the techniques, the strategy, and all you can mention to make every single one of us leaders. And this includes women as well. Women are, we know that they are amazing leaders of our communities, of our nation. And we're concentrating on men in this club, boy child, and the family. So as I go along, I'm going to ask every single one of you to mute themselves as they go into the room, because half the time when we speak, we get interrupted by people who come in unmuted. So with due respect, everyone, and Leadership Nkosi, I'm going to ask you to just monitor people who are not muted. We really need to get everyone muted so that we pay attention to what's going to be deliberated today. I also want to ask you to prepare yourself for this incredible lecture. Get your notepads before our speaker comes on board. Paper, get your notepads, paper and pen, and be ready to learn on these practical examples, practical tools of how to become a leader that makes proper decisions in our communities and lives. We have made too many make wrong decisions before, and we continually make wrong decisions as we go along. And we say we learn as we go along. But my request is, let us be in a position where we use every information that we are going to learn here today to better ourselves as leaders of our families, leaders of our communities, leaders of our classrooms, leaders at work, to make proper decisions, and leaders of ourselves as well as people, to make proper decisions that are well informed and that we can stand for. As I was telling you about the club, country, you are regarded as a South African man. We really need every single man. Whether you are Sonta or Sonti, we need it to be here. Whether we are Sebenza or Asebenzi, woziklapeni baba. Lana eSALGC starter wonke umuntu siyafunana la. Siyadingana uku-akhana njengamadoda to build our communities, our homes, that families that have been destroyed many and thousands of years back. So this club, it's unifying the family, because if you notice, since the fall of man in the Garden of Eden, the Edenic fall, I normally call it, of man, There's never been any intention to rise up the fallen man. The trajectory has gone on as the plan to destroy a man. The purpose was not really for a man, was to destroy a family and to destroy the purpose of God on planet Earth. Because if you think about it and you do understand God's purpose on earth, God's purpose on earth was nothing else but to extend this kingdom of heaven onto planet Earth. So if God is going to extend his kingdom here on planet Earth, the attack of those dark forces that don't want God's will to be done on earth as it's done on heaven, they will ensure that on earth the charge and the rulings it's that of the dark forces instead of the maker of heaven and earth. So the fall of man was just one of the processes in destroying a family and in destroying God's will on planet Earth. That is why you see today there is no intention across all governments in the world, across all corporate business in the world, to fund or to try to put efforts into rising the fallen man. A man has fallen and everybody is put on him, and he will be blamed and he'll be redefined by media of who or what kind of a person he's supposed to be, other than the maker who's the originator of the this product called human and a man. So, ladies and gentlemen, this club is to do that. It's to raise the man from his fall. And as SALGC, we realize that transferring the burden of our leadership decision onto people who know less, it's almost demonic. We need to stand up as men and leaders and show our characteristics, remain in good characteristic of decision making, because one of the great attributes of great leaders is decision making, taking responsibility and making decisions. Not making decisions, remember, it's also part of making a decision. So you rather make a proper decision than just say, I cannot make a decision. So as a man, as a leader, you are also a leader of your life. You are an executive leader yourself. And I tell a lot of people that you might not have a title, you might not be anything else, but let me tell you, God gave you an amazing title. You are the CEO, you are the MD, you are the architect, you are everything of your life. So the decisions that you make in your life impacts entirely on you. So at SALGC City, Amateur, to make that decision, come and join the club. We are saying to ladies who are friends of the club, who are also here and are often also in our midst all the time in the lectures that we hold here at SALGC City Gubo, encourage your brothers and sisters, your uncles, umalume, your partners to come and join the club so that they earn and learn into this incredible wisdom that's been shared. Because this lecture come out of the 5 founding pillars of this club, which came out of the hypothesis of what could be the solution of the dynamic situation that we face ourselves in our country. We have gender-based violence, we've got crime in general, we've got murders, we've got all these other things that are happening. We thought as the club leadership and say, what could be the solution and the antidote to all these challenges? Ultimately, after all these hypotheses that came into the picture, the 5 founding pillars that we settled on are the ones that are addressing all the challenges that are in the country. Because if you look at the 5 pillars, I encourage every one of you to go to the SALGC website and observe those pillars and went through them one by one. They are very detailed there on the website. There's the chances of these pillars addressing the challenges in our country is the pillar number 1 says the liberation of the mind. If you liberated your mind, you are able to invest everything in it without losing your investment out of the crevices of the heart mind that refuses to change. So these 5 founding pillars, one of them, this first one that I've just mentioned, developed this program that we are in today. There's 4 more pillars that talks to all the challenges that we have in our country, because all 5 of these pillars, I can tell you, they are addressing the psychosocial and economic challenges that we face in our country. We are not a political party. We don't talk politics here. We talk life in general. We talk leadership in general. We talk family, because that's what we are here about. So I was saying, call your brother, call your partner, bring them to SALGC, let them sit and listen so that they enter into the wisdom of what is going on in their life so that they make proper decisions tomorrow. I always say, let's make it a motto that each one of us brings once to these meetings. So I have an incredible amount of passion for this club. Many of you would know. But today, indeed, it's not really about me. Today, it's about our guest speaker, very great and amazing man. I met him a few months ago somewhere in Soweto, and I knew that I've really met a great guy here. I've met a soldier, a man of God. And when we met, he was supposed to do this presentation that he's going to share with us here today. He was supposed to present it with us for us in Soweto. But out of what happened there, we could not get his presentation. But we just said we are going to get it out of him. The wisdom that he has is amazing. I'm going to quickly read for you the biography of Bishop Lucky Mandlazi. Because he is born Mr. Vusmusi Lucky Mandlagazi, who was born in Pumalanga Lowveld in the village called Emapotweni. He completed his diploma in labor relations and a BTech degree in human resources at a Triangle Technical, which was later changed to Val University of Technology, where he further attended a completed finance for non-financial managers in Pretoria University honors degree in retail management through Gordon Institute of Business School, which is GIBS. Supply chain management with Penn State University in the US, currently pursuing MPhil change leadership. Mr. Mandlazi is a spiritual and corporate leader with a vast experience in people management. A father, husband, brother, son, facilitator, coach, and business speaker. He worked for Levi Strauss and Company as a human resource director for Africa, Middle East, and Pakistan. He worked for the national and multinational companies in human resources leadership, including but not limited to Adcon Group, Regional HR Manager, Compass Group, National HR Manager for Africa, NEMPEC Group, Learning and Development Manager, MASMAT HR Executive for Macro, etc. He is part of the W&R CETA alumni for International Leadership Development Program. He's a farmer, executive head, HR in pharmaceutical industry, a member of operating board, member of the board of trustees for pension fund, a medical aid, member of W&R CETA ILDP steering committee. He is also a member of the global board of trustees for the Red Tap Foundation, a global initiative by Levi Strauss and Levi Strauss Company. He is also serving as a trustee and secretary of the BMMT Foundation. He served in Christian leadership at his tender age, preaching in schools, SOEs, communities, led young ministry, youth ministries, and is very passionate about sound family values. Beautiful. Helping people thrive and making a difference to people. A former secretary of the South African Council of Churches, Youth League, and currently a contributor to the World Christian Encyclopedia and third edition through Boston University in the US. Having completed his certificate in ministry, he is currently studying his diploma in ministry through Omega Global University. Vusumuzi Mandlazi is married to his beautiful wife, a pillar of strength, Leboha Mandlazi, in 2007, and they are blessed with 3 kids, 1 girl, Ndlaganipho, and 2 boys, Mpumelelo and Mpendulo Kamandlazi. Mr. Ndlazi is a presiding bishop of believers in Christ. Gentlemen and ladies, amazing, amazing CV. I don't know if you all get it. If there's one thing I'm very proud of, mute please, leadership. If there's one thing I'm proud of, it's the quality of speakers that we try hard as the club to bring here to share the wisdom is absolutely amazing. I mean, these are stuff that a lot of people go to places to go listen to. But what we bring here, it's really world class, you'll agree. With that said and mentioned, I'm just going to jump into it and give Leadership Mandlazi a platform to take us through what he has for us. And let's take notes, notepads and pens, and just start scribbling and getting all this information as he'll be taking us through. Once he is done with the presentation, it's only then for those who are new here that will be taking, it will be Q&A time for us to start asking questions. So please get your questions on paper now while he's going through all those practical tools of how to make us better people tomorrow. This is a man who has traveled the journey, who is in the, what do they call it? In the trenches, who knows what he's talking about. He's not bringing textbook material. He talks about what he really truly knows and what has made him what and who he is today. With that said, let's jump into it. Leadership, welcome to the club, Baba.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Boti. Yeah. It is really exciting to be in this space. I am trying to show face a little before I can even just switch it off. I seem to be having some challenges from my side here. I wanted to show face, but anyway, I hope if I continue to struggle with that, it will be allowed that I continue. Can I just get it?
No, you can continue solo leadership.
There it is. I'm being allowed to show face. Thank you very much. Yes. No, thank you very much, Chair. It is really exciting for me to be in this space. I thought I should just show my face to those brothers and sisters whom we haven't met each other before, so that they can just, see who is talking to them. And immediately after that, I will definitely just switch off my camera just for the network. It is not stable at this point in time. I thought I should just be upfront with that, and the reasons why I will be switching off my camera. Like I said, Chairperson, it is indeed my honor to be part of this movement, and a privilege indeed to be addressing this forum where there is great minds and wisdom, so much wisdom in this room. I had a privilege to join few. I have followed you and other speakers who have been invited in this space. It is really, really amazing. And I've been saying, look, I don't even know whether I do qualify to come and speak in this space. And if I do have the wisdom which the other speakers really, they have shared in this space. But I was very surprised when you came to me and said, you insist that I should speak in this space. Firstly, I had only 15 minutes to talk. My 15 minutes now became 45 minutes to an hour of talking to the men and women of God in this space. Let me just bring my special greetings to the gents and the ladies who are here. These are special greetings indeed, which is coming from my wife, Mandlazi, who got very excited as well when she learned for the first time about this club. I also would like to bring to the SALGC special greetings from the father who is my mentor and the Archbishop, Professor M.M. Shabalala, under whom I really serve in the ministry. It is important, and I'm doing this thing on purpose because there is some fundamental lessons here which I am trying to share with the male seed. The need of recognizing those mentors who have walked before you, and also never ever think that you are any better outside those people who have mentored you into the journey. So when I craft my sort of speech all the time, I make sure that I acknowledge those people who have contributed into the betterment of my life and also have contributed even in the setup of my family. So it is important that I so my fellow men, ladies and gentlemen, I am just a normal person, and I want to start there. You can see that in front of you, our topics that we have, it's our choices, our destiny. So I must confess upfront that in the church where I lead, I package my messages into two segments, and the primary one being choices. So what does that mean is that I preach and tell people that there is a God out there who loves people, God who wants to give hope to people. And those people who desires to be saved, they will then acknowledge the truth and accept the Christ. So the second segment of my message, of how I sort of package this, it's the message which is found into the Holy Book again, that says, thy will be done on earth as it is on heaven. So now this is when we are dealing with the mindset and tackling difficult questions here of what God requires of us here on earth before we go to heaven. You know, this is now the liberation of the mindset. Because sometimes as Christians, once we accept Christ, we are quick to wanting to go home. You know, you want to dive in your prayer. You are saying, oh God, if you can just come and take me home. You know, failing to understand that God wants you to do so much here on earth before you go to heaven. So I made a personal choice of becoming a child of God and follow the Christ. There was no major event that has happened in my life like it was the case, by the way, in Paul's life. You will recall that while Paul was on his way, he was struck by the lightning and heard the voice. I was not struck by the lightning. There wasn't anything major that has happened to me. I had to make a choice of becoming a child of God. And let me tell you why I chose to be a child of God. It is because I saw how my father led his life. My father would go to work and he will earn so much money and he will come back and return home. But when he come home, he will just indulge himself into alcohol. He will drink. And once he is drunk, his behavior, by the way, it was not something that anyone would want, you know, to see. You wouldn't want to be around him. And I took a decision that I am not going to drink alcohol ever in my life. So that was a choice that I made. It is not because there was a life-changing scenario or an activity which has happened. It is important that I point that out right up front before we continue with this. So, Chairperson, allow me therefore to pass my comments based on the proverb which is found in the book of Ezekiel. You can see that in my slide that the very first slide that I have put, it is Ezekiel chapter number 18. I can see there that I've stopped sharing. Let me bring it up again. Can you see it, Chair? Okay. So I have decided to just base my conversation on this.
Yeah, sorry, can you mute? Can you mute, please? Sorry, my leader, I'm sorry for that. I'm sorry.
No problem. So I am starting on this and I am going to finish on it. The fathers ate sour grapes, but the children's teeth are set on the edge. This is a proverb. Now, if you look into this proverb, it suggests to us that the fathers ate something for the fulfillment of their own stomach, for their own enjoyment, but the children paid the price at the end of the day. This suggests to us, folks, that there are decisions that we make as fathers, there are decisions that we are making as men, and there are decisions that we make as people. But those decisions sometimes, though they may be bringing so much pleasure to us and fulfillment at that point in time, but there are other people who pay the price at the end of the day. So I will be my talk based on this proverb, which is according to Ezekiel chapter number 18. I thought I should just start by understanding the concept of choices, the idea of choices. What is this? And I looked into different dictionaries. I try to understand the philosophy around this, and there is only two things which everyone is agreeing on. And these are the act of choosing, it's about selection, you know, so it's a free will. You're using your power to choose something, you know, so you are not coerced into acting. It is voluntary, an act that comes out of your own free will. There is no one who's pointing a gun at anybody to say, you shall do this. It is a choice that you make. Now, when you go and check, even from the word of the Lord, you will see that very early in Genesis, God didn't want people to be forced or to be coerced into obeying his rules. What God did, he put a person into the Garden of Eden and his partner. And he then said, in the garden, there is a plant or there is a tree of knowledge. I am therefore before you to say you make your own choice, because I am telling you not to eat from that tree. But he did not force these people to make that choice. So you can see now that the issue of God has presented from the beginning. He doesn't want people to be coerced, because he understands that once you act under duress, you may not enjoy that which you are doing, because you are now forced into acting into a particular way. But if you are doing it out of your own free will, therefore you are going to do it very best. If it's love, you're going to laugh better. If it's caring for other people, you are going to do this better. It is something that you have to do out of your free will. Now, I've spent some time just trying to understand the choice of life or death. And I took this back for those of you who have been around during that time. This was the very, very first long queues that we have seen in 1994. And all these people are queuing up here to make their own choices. These choices, it's made by everybody, whether you are rich or poor. You are supposed to be making a choice in your life. Ministers, businessmen, those people in the street, they all queue up here. They were queuing up to go make their own choices. Every choice has got a promise. Back then, we were told that go and make a choice so that you can have freedom. Go make a choice so that you can have peace. Go make a choice so that you can have jobs. This was the promise which we have seen back then in the days. Fast forward, I have observed now the issue of the COVID-19, that if you read about it when it was presented, now there is a vaccine which is meant to be curing this. But every person who is to take this vaccine, they are not being forced. They are being given a choice. So you've got to exercise your right of making your own personal choice. But every choice that we make, folks, there is a price that you pay at the end. If you make a good choice, you're going to enjoy the fruit of your good choice. And if your choice is bad, equally so, you are going to pay the price of your bad choices. This anchor scripture, which you see here in Deuteronomy chapter 30, verse 19, it reads, "Today I have given you the choice between life and death, between blessings and curses. Now I call on heaven and earth to witness the choice you make. Oh, that you would choose life, so that you and your descendants might live." So if you look into this scripture, we can only see one thing here, guys, that the choices that you make, you are making choices for yourself, but sometimes, or many a times, the choices that we make, it is for those who are coming behind us. It is for those who are going to come after us. Then the next verse says, you can make this choice by loving the Lord your God, obeying him, and committing yourself firmly to him. This is the key to your life. And if you love and obey the Lord, you will live long in the land the Lord swore to give your ancestors Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. I want to suggest to you that this promise or this choice that God wanted humankind to make, it was not meant for them to see him when they died. But these choices, it was meant primarily as the first point of departure for them to live well on earth. So he said, if you choose and choose well, these choices are going to benefit not only yourself, but your children to your generation. They are going to benefit from this. I'm going to leave it to you, gents here in the court, to make your own mind, to make up your own mind, whether the choices that we made from 1994 and the choices that we continue to make are really paying the dividends for us. And if they are not paying the dividends, for us, where is the gap? And what is it that we need to do as the male seed to go back where God wants humankind to be? In our Constitution, once again, there is the freedom of choice. If you want to be gay, you have a full choice to make. If you think you are lesbian, you are not what people think you are, you've got to make that right and exercise that choice yourself. If you want to go for transgender, you are going to make your own choice to do that. Now, I've taken the time, therefore, folks, to understand, just to bring one definition here around this transgender female thing. And I've seen that a trans woman is a woman who was assigned male at birth. Trans women may experience gender dysphoria and may transition. This process commonly includes all those hormone replacement, as you may have seen or read about these things, and all the therapy and sometimes sex reassignment surgery, which can bring relief and resolve feelings of gender dysphoria. All these things, it comes to one thing and one thing only. That is the choice that humankind needs to make. No one is being forced into any of these things. What about the polyandry? Polyandry, you have married your wife, you know your wife to be married only to you, and now you come back home, my wife tells me, by the way, Mr. Mandlazi, I thought Mr. Nkosi should be coming to assist you in this household. And when you challenge them, they tell you, we've got our rights. It is the right for us to do so. And it is our choice that we are making. I now want another man. I want you to get help. I want to marry another husband. All these things are allowed. The polyandry marriage of a woman to two or more men at the same time. And we have seen that this term is derived from the Greek polis, or many. So we are living into this system, Bazalwane, in these times where everything is allowed. So the key take out here is that it is your choice. Everything is permissible, but not everything is beneficial. Everything is permissible, but not everything is edifying. You've got to make your own choice in terms of the path that you want to take, and be prepared to live with the consequences of your own choices that you make whilst on earth. Now, in the business space, I happen to be a trustee of different funds. And what I have observed there is that the duty of the trustees is to act on behalf of other people. We've got to make choices for their monies every day. We've got to act in the best interest of this individual. So life is about choices every day that we make. But on the other side, if you look at the democracy, and I have underlined this on purpose, it is a system. We are living under the system. It's a system of government. This system has got its own ways of running, and you cannot remove the bolts and nuts which is keeping this system together, which is designed by the masters. You will know that it is democracy if the control of this system is by the majority of its members. But every time when I look into this definition of democracy and thinking about what I have already shown to you, at times I wonder if these choices are being made by the majority of this democracy, or the masters, or simple, the masters somewhere, they are making these decisions, and somebody in the system, they just come to implement the decisions of the masters. So folks, choices are an everyday activity faced by all humankind. We make choices for our own self, and sometimes we make choices for other people. I will be spending some time here because I want us to look into the practical examples around the Lord's choice, which I call the big price. During this time, economic decisions were supposed to be made or were supposed to be taken. Life-changing decisions were supposed to be taken at this point in time. You will recall that Lot was walking with Abram as his cousin brother. And Abram, who was actually blessed. And because this guy was walking with his mentor, he started to acquire wealth because he was getting a lot of support from Abram. He was getting a lot of coaching from Abram. And he was getting a lot of support from Abram. And it so happened that also he became wealthy because of the association that he had. But I want to show you something here about the choices of Lot. So when these guys became very, very wealthy, the story suggests that the land became too small for the both of them. And their headmen started to quarrel and fight amongst each other. Abram said, "You are my brother, we must not fight. Choose therefore which direction you want to go." But listen to what Lot is doing. Lot, because now he has acquired stuff, he thought he was now, wise, he thought he was rich. He no longer required any input from his mentor. He no longer wanted to hear the counsel and wisdom from those people who walked before him. The person who made him, he disregarded his advice. And because of that, we learn that he made a poor economic decision. Something that he did not only affect him, but something that affected the entire generation that came after him, or the generation that was led by him. By the way, this man did not only disregard, counsel from his mentor. He also disregarded an advice from angels. Because if you follow the story of this man, Abram said to him, "Choose first." Instead of saying, "You as my mentor, I want your counsel in this before I make any decision. I need counsel from you. I need advice from you. I need information on how to choose." He didn't do that. When he chose his own direction, which looked like green, a direction that looked like very wealthy and rich, he took off, he went there. But when you read the story, you will find that as he was there in that city, Lot became very popular. He was known by everybody for his riches, and he was sitting in the council of the city. As he was sitting in the council of the city, what we learn about this man is that then there was a mob which came to attack the city. As the mob came to attack the city, and I want the man here to listen to this, the story of Lot. As the mob came, because he was a popular man and he was trustworthy and trusted in the city, what he did, he went and pleaded with the mob, and he said to them, I have got 2 virgin daughters. Instead of attacking and doing what you want to do here, please take my daughters and sleep with them. But the angels intervened. They said to him, no, you don't need to do this. You just don't need to give your daughters into these people. The angel said to him, this city is going to be saved. Don't worry. The one that you're running into is going to be saved. But he did not even listen to the angels. What we learn about him is that he took his 2 daughters off, he left to live in a cave. And why did this guy now went and live into the cave, live in the city? It's because he did not listen, he did not take counsel from the angel. I mean, this is the same mistake that he did when he had to make a choice around his economic decisions. He did not talk or consult with his mentors. Now he's repeating the same mistake. The angels are giving him counsel, but no, he didn't listen to this. He went and lived in a cave with his daughters. Guess what happened there? Because the daughters thought that no, they were the only inhabitants left in the world. There was no longer any person left. Despite the knowledge that Lot had, that there are other cities that will be saved, and the angels told him exactly where to go and what to do. He disregarded that advice and the counsel from the mentor, or the counsel from his mentor. Now he's repeating the same mistake here, because now the daughters thought that there was nobody else. Their daughters gave him alcohol, they made him drunk, because they started thinking to say, we do not want the generation of our father to perish completely. Then they started having, they committed the first incest, which is crime of having sexual intercourse with your close relative. Now the daughters here slept with their own father. So what we see today is not things that are new. These things has been around for many times. And when you look into all these things, somebody made a wrong choice. Our choices, our destiny. Now the choice or the choices which this man, have made at that point in time led into all this chaos that we are seeing today. Now people are sleeping with their grandchildren, they're sleeping with their siblings. It's just chaotic out there in the system. But these things does not just happen in isolation. It is something which somebody did not make a right choice. And what was the outcome of all this? Is the Moabites and the Ammonites. I don't need to tell you about these 2 generations. Because now these were people now who started to design their own and follow their own gods. They disregarded now completely the ways of the Lord. And all these things, they are interconnected into somebody's decision, into somebody's choice. But look, Abraham, what Abraham did. Abraham chose peace. He said, you and I, we are brothers, we must not fight. Choose first, because he didn't want to have any dispute and any quarrel with anybody. But there are 2 things that I just want to show the man here around what Abraham did. The first thing that we will learn about this guy is that as he was thinking and lost in his mind around making decisions. All he could see, it was dust. And I made this in uppercase for a reason. All he could see, it was dust. You cannot do anything out of dust. But as he saw dust, he needed to be sober in his mindset. Because every man, before making any decision, you've got to collect your mindset. You need to be in a right space of your senses before you can make any other decision. What he did, he looked up to God. As he looked up to God, then he started hearing. You see, this is a type of a man who wants to hear somebody, who wants to listen to advices, who wants to take counsel, who wants to gather enough data before making decisions. As he was looking up to God, the Bible teaches us that God said, look in all the directions, south, west, north, east. And he said, everything that you see, I have given to you. And he then made reference to the dust that Abraham was saying. God said, if you can number this dust, so will be the numbers of the generation that will be leading, the people that will be coming after you. It means multiplication. It means plenty. But at that point in time, all he saw, it was dust. I want to suggest to you folks that after that has happened, Abraham had to make a choice once again. And he had to be prepared to commit to that choice. And that choice was to trust into the voice of the Lord. Number two, it was to be prepared to work the land, as dusty as it looked at that point in time. He didn't want the shortcuts that his cousin brother Lot wanted, because Lot all he could do was to see or to look which direction looked much greener and to run to that. But Abraham was prepared to start from scratch. Abraham was prepared to work the land. Abraham was prepared and committed to go through the journey and the process. What the point that I want to land with the men here in this slide? I want to suggest to you that sometimes we need to make sure, gents, never to disregard counsel from the wise, even if it feels like you are making it in life. You've got to know that there are people who have walked the path before you. You've got to know the people who have done this thing before you, and you've got to come and associate yourself with those people who have walked the path, with those people who have made it before. Ask for counsel from those guys. Ask for advices and be prepared to go through the pain. The other thing that I want to lend to you gents is that sometimes you must not act too hastily. We mustn't be too quick to act. You see, a mistake that we make as gents sometimes, you just go around, you see this woman, you have seen only one thing about these people, and you're quick to make decisions. Hey, there we go. This is the person that I want, without having collected enough data, enough information about this. So to the sons who are listening to us, or to the sons who are here, I want to suggest to you that before you make a decision, collect enough data, enough information about that particular thing before you act. You must not just rush into it. You mustn't just jump into it. But the other thing, gents, you must be prepared to sweat. Make that choice of saying, I want to sweat for this. I am prepared to work and earn my stripes. I am not going to settle for, quick wins here and quick bucks. Unless you do so, you will not be able to appreciate that which you have gone through. So, gents, before I move into the slide, take these few things Do not act unless you have enough information. Do not disregard counsel from the wise, especially when you are about to make big decisions in your life, life-changing decisions. Listen to people. By the time, research things. By the time you are making your own decision, you have enough to base your decision on. But the last thing, seek God's approval. I like that because, you know, in everything that I've done in my life or everything that I do in my life, I do not act unless or until I feel like I do have God's approval in whatever that I'm doing. This is about the Lord's choice, the big mistake and the big price that he had to make. Genesis 13 is where you are finding this story about these two guys, Abraham and Lot. And what you can see here is that Lot, who was moving with Abraham, who was walking with Abraham, by association, he became rich as well. But the thing that he did not do, which Abraham did differently, is that Abraham, he then set up a tent for God and started to build an altar. This gentleman did not do so. What does an altar represent in the life of a man? An altar represents a go-to place for you in times of trouble. What is it that when, trouble sets your way, you are going to be able to run into for safety? Abraham had an altar for that. So a man cannot do without anything. You see, other people, they are placing their hopes and safety and security, in the guns which they own, ammunition and all these other things. Others, they've got different things that we are believing in. It could be traditional things. It could be whatever that you are believing in. But a man, you've got to have something that you are able to run into when things are getting tougher and tougher in your way. Then Abraham said, please, let us not quarrel because we are close relatives. I want to conclude about the sour grape story, which I have told you about earlier on. In my last 20 minutes, I just want to talk about that. The fathers ate sour grapes and the children paid the price. In other words, the father made his choice, but the children are paying the price. The fathers committed the sin, but their children are getting punished for it. How is that? These proverbs, in my view, it emphasizes the importance of choices we make as fathers, and that sometimes there are choices the man makes for their own enjoyment, but the consequences are dire. By the way, it affects not only those around us, but it affects even the people who are going to come in the future. You decide, I'm going to sleep out for the weekend outside of my bed. You do that to fulfill your own desires, to pleasure yourself for that weekend or for those few minutes. Somebody get pregnant there, a child get born out of wedlock. Now that child does not get the same enjoyment of love of the father and the attention of the father like the ones in the house. So these stupid mistakes that we make as men, people are paying for it. When you hear a man saying, hey, if I die, I die, you must know, Uguti, this guy is prepared now to do the greatest thing ever in his life. He just doesn't come a man and say, if I die, I die, mangife, angife. You know, he doesn't say that unless he is about to do something even great. We make choices every day. Seated here, I've made a choice, you have made your own choice. Last night, we have made our own choices about certain things. Others are still contemplating on whether to pull the trigger on their choices which they've made, because we all make choices. But when it comes to the issue of choices with God, he says in Deuteronomy, he calls upon the heaven and the earth to align, to bear witnesses against mankind. Meaning whatever decisions we make, God is calling the universe to bear witness against us. When you complain and say things aren't going right for me, God says, I have given you an opportunity to make a choice. And this is what you have chosen. When you acted on this, the universe beard testimony. They were there to witness everything that you were doing. You were not under duress. You were not under a barrel of a gun when you made that decision. Everything is permissible, but not everything is beneficial. So as we're making choices, folks, I want to call on you that we make choices which value relationships over rights. When you're making your own choice, you've got to ask yourself, is this decision going to help me to nurture the relationships that I have, the winning relationships that I have in my circle? Yes, you have the right to do whatever that you want to do, but the choice that you are making, is it going to support you to strengthen and build strong relationships? And if it is not, I want to ask of you to reconsider and don't proceed with that decision that you are making. Make relationships which value, make choices that value relationships over rights. Verse 8, please let there be no strife between you and me because we are brothers. Coming just after the statement about, those Canaanites and the other guys being in the land. This may point to Abraham, even Abraham's concern about how their strife would affect witness to the pagans around them. How can God people bear witness for him if the world sees them fighting among themselves? So Abraham had a right to choose first. Remember, he was the guy who was given this thing, and Lord was just walking with him. So he had a right to choose whatever land he wanted and let Lord take the leftovers. He was the older, he was the chief on the clan of the clan. God had promised the land to Abraham, not to Lot. You see? So all these things are very important to note, that sometimes you take decisions and make choices that are going to help you nurture relationships and protect relationships over rights. The second point that I just want to make is that make choices which value godliness over greed. So when you are making a choice, you've got to ask yourself, is this choice feeding into my greed? Or is this choice, valuing godliness above my own personal greed? The third one, make choices which value fellowship with God over the approval of the world. And the last one, make choices which value God's eternal promises over immediate pleasure. You know, there are things which sometimes could be nice to have just for 5 minutes. I'll be very excited to do this. I will feel good when I'm doing this. After drinking this, I will feel like I'm in cloud 9. But this immediate pleasure, it will pass quickly, and you'll be left with the reality of life. Gents, another guy made a decision or a choice which saw his son packing out of the family, and he went and stayed in another village, leaving the house where riches were. And they couldn't visit each other for 3 years, yet staying in the same township, but they couldn't visit each other for 3 years. Sometimes when things were a little bit tougher for the father, he longed for his son. He wanted the son to come, but he couldn't because of the choices that he made. What choice was that? The daughter was raped in the house, and the father became aware of this, but the father turned a blind eye to that, not knowing that the other son observed that, and that was Solomon. He observed exactly what the father did. Now, this decision led into the son now chasing the father, wanting to avenge for his cousin sister, because the father did not act. When things happened in the house, the father turned a blind eye. So, gentlemen, I just want to leave these thoughts with you. As you are going this afternoon, this evening, start thinking about the choices that you are making. Start understanding that everything is permissible, but not everything is beneficial. You are allowed to do whatever that you need to do now, but is it beneficial for you? A good man, start thinking of the generation to come. He leaves inheritance not for only his immediate children now, but for the children of his children. That's what a wise man does. Is think of generation. He doesn't think of the next meal, where the next meal is going to come from, and you consume, you eat, and you go to the bathroom, you go to the toilet, you leave it there. But you think about those people who are going to come after you. I wanted, Chair, to leave these thoughts with all the men and the women who are in this space. And I want to thank you for the opportunity that you gave me as I sign out. Choose life so that you live. Choose well so that you and the families after you may live. Thank you very much, Chair. I will now hand back to you for reflections or questions that we may have. Thank you.
Thank you, leadership. Absolutely powerful. Absolutely powerful information. It really makes one to simply just reflect and look into themselves and look back on choices that we made. All choices are permissible, but not all of them are beneficial. We should reflect and we should take stock of our lives and the decisions that we make and see if they benefit the lives or the direction we want to take or the relationships that we have, or it's completely taking us the opposite direction. This is powerful information I've received, and I'm sure that a lot of people here, leaders here, we have family here. The beautiful thing of SALGC is we have family here. Family comes, there's men and women, boy, child, everybody, girl, child. So I'm sure we have taken as much as I have taken. Absolutely beautiful. Thank you, leadership. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. I had a feeling that you were really going to do justice to this beautiful topic, very, very serious and and powerful topic. And you actually really indeed did justice to this topic. And I personally, for one, I can tell you I've taken a lot on it. I reflect back and look at decisions that I've made before. And when you started, you said something very important, that gents, people suffer for the decisions we make. There's people who really truly suffer because we can stand up and say, I'm very sorry for the decision that I've made 11 years, 24 years later or so. But people suffered in that process, suffered a great deal because of the ridiculous decisions that we made. So for me, I've taken a lot. I've taken a lot. And yeah, really, truly, I'm glad that you really came and do your work here, leadership, national duty that you really, truly did. And we are appreciative of that. I'm going to just open up to the nation of SALGC, both here in Zoom, everybody who's here, and I'm going to open up to the questions out there on Facebook Live. So leaders will check the leaders of SALGC here. You check on Facebook what is happening. You'll also help me pick up the hands that goes up. So by a raise of a hand, if there's anyone who just want to quickly jump into it, let's just get. If there's anyone who wants to get into it before anybody else, this is the platform for you. Raise your hand and get clarity, ask questions, and be a better leader, make proper decisions as we move forward. While I'm waiting for the hands to go up, leadership, I would just want to just run this by you. Would you say there's any difference, or there's a difference at all between making a decision and making a choice, or a choice? Some people would say, I made a choice, but it wasn't my decision. So would you say there is a difference between the two, making a choice and making a decision?
In my view, Chair, these two words are interchangeable. So they are not independent of each other. So a person will make a choice, and after you have made your own choice, you've got to decide, and I hear you when you're saying other people will say, well, I've made a decision, but it was not my choice, or vice versa. I've made a choice, but it was not my decision. Is because, in my view, these two words are interchangeable. So they are very close to each other. So people are making choices voluntary, and that's what I wanted to sort of emphasize there, because the concept of choice, it suggests that an individual do have a freedom to make a choice. So when you decide and you then saying, no, it was not my decision, but I've made a choice, but it was not my decision. Unfortunately, you cannot pass the consequences to the third party. You've got to suffer the consequences yourself, because at the end of the day, it was your choice. It would be very interesting to hear the wisdom around this table to say, how do they see that? But I think the only thing that I want to suggest to the guys here is that at the end of the day, the test will be the prize. You cannot pass it on to the third party and blame it. They might have influenced it, but you are going to bear the price and pay the price alone.
Great. And the reason I'm asking you that, it's because, as I was listening earlier, and please, this is not a dialogue. If there's anyone with a question, type on the chat box or raise your hand. I will pick you up. I'm just really probing here. I can see Leadership Sipo's hand is up, but can I just finish this question, Leadership Sipo, so that you can come into it? The reason for my question, my leader, is what do you say to a teacher somewhere in Ngogundlovu or in Palabora, Namahale township, who says to you, look, I've heard you mentioning this issue of COVID-19 and the vaccines and stuff. So my department said to me, we need to all we all need to vaccinate. And what they did was, although the president said it's not mandatory, we were told that if we don't vaccinate, we are not going to get paid. The department is not going to be responsible when we are sick and all that. So it is the decisions that I have made, but it wasn't my choice. It was almost like it was a forced choice. It wasn't a free will. If it were by me, I would not have taken a vaccine. What would you say to that person when it comes to choices and the consequences that will live with them? Will you exonerate them from the consequences of that coerced decision making, or how do we go around that?
I do not intend to sort of make comments on COVID-19 as it is known in the country. But if a person, in some way in the country says to me, look, I know the decision that I have made or the choice that I've made, but I find myself where I'm told if I don't take a certain direction, I might lose on certain benefits. I can say to that individual, the law of the land is there to protect them. By the way, there are some cases out there already, which we have seen. And I'm talking as an executive leader in the business, where we have seen cases where people now got protected from people who brought the dialogue or the argument, which said, from a health and safety point of view, we've got a duty as the employer to create a safe working environment for everybody. To that effect, we therefore decided that everybody shall. And that was brought into different dispute forums, and those people were protected because the point of departure is that it is an individual choice. It is voluntary. And as I'm making this comment, Chair, I do not want to be misquoted by anyone who's listening to this as having supported or sponsored a different position. It is also my personal choice if I choose to do that or not to do that. It is not for me to influence in either direction.
Thank you, leadership. Thank you. And let it be clear to everyone that the discussion is not COVID. I was just making a practical example because we're talking contemporary issues that affects everyday life. So that was an example that I'm making in terms of understanding the context of choice and decision making. If you live with the consequences of the choices that you have made, can it be that they were coerced into them or what? So that's I understand your answer, and thank you very much. I see I know leadership people. I said I'll come back to you, but can I give the Iron Lady? I see we have a lady in the house, the Iron Lady. This is the second time I see her in the house. Welcome, Sisi. The platform is all yours.
Thank you very much, Chair. Thank you so much, Presiding Bishop Mandlazi. Very powerful and enlightening presentation that has made me see things that I was not aware of. Thank you so much. I do have a question that I would like to just pose when it comes to the choices, because making choices, it always uses different tools of measurement. In this context, I will be specifically in spiritually, religious, or culturally. Those things always have the way that you have to, when you measure them, they will always contradict or conflict one another. For us to know exactly what is the, because choices then becomes different individually because of where you are. So spiritual people have got different things that they are doing. For us to get to a point of knowing what do we qualify as a right choice that is made, what measure do we use, or it's just a personal thing that I will decide for me, and only if it it makes me happy. Then if that is the case, my question would be, where then do we come to this point of being a unit that will understand, so that we don't have these conflicts that are birthed or that derived from the choices that are made because culturally, my culture says something else, or spirituality says something else, or my background. So I want to know, how do we balance that? Because there'll always be a conflict there. Thank you so much.
Sister Musa, I have chosen carefully the scripture of 1 Corinthians, where it says everything is permissible, but not everything is beneficial. And as I was making my presentation, I did indicate that we've got to graduate and move from this level into another level of maturity as human beings. That is to collect enough data, get enough information before you make a decision or before you are making a choice. You see, there are decisions that we are making as young boys without having gathered enough information. But the price that we pay later, the consequences are dire. So all I am suggesting to the forum here this afternoon is only two things. The first one is that collect enough information on every subject or any subject before you are making a decision. Satisfy yourself that I have checked all the possibilities and the angles, and now I am satisfied that I know the disadvantages of this, I know the advantages of this, I am now ready to make a decision. All choices, by the way, they are choices and they are working. The other choice is what we made reference to here as your short-lived, the immediate pleasure is going to benefit you now. But the price that you're going to pay later is far bigger. So what I want to sort of suggest to the gents here is that perhaps let us move into or move away from making choices that are going to benefit you now, short term, yet are going to damage people in the future. So gather enough information. After having gathered enough information, know that everything is permissible, but not everything is beneficial, and choose your own battle. I can only, comment in that fashion, Sister Musa.
Thank you very much, Bishop Mandlazi. Thank you. I think I'm satisfied. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sis. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Leadership Sipho, I put you aside. I will go to Sifiso later. Can you jump into it, Leadership Sipho?
Okay, good day. Thank you very much, Bishop, for your contribution today. We appreciate your time. I think from my side, I heard that if I die, I die. But what I really wanted to say regarding our choices is something that I got from one of the authors of the Seven Habits of Highly Effective Families, Steve Covey. He says, between stimulus and the response, there is a space. In that space lies our freedom and power to choose our response. In that response lies our growth and our happiness. I think that talks exactly to what Bishop has been talking about regarding that our choices that we make today determine our destiny. And it is true that there are some choices that were made by our fathers, our forefathers, that has led us to here. But what I wanted to find out is to say, yes, there are choices that some people have made, but currently, what can you say, Bishop, about someone who's blaming, maybe I was not raised in a family that has love, so I'm not able to love, or I could not go to school, and because my parents were sending me to go to look after their cattle. What can you say to someone in this 21st century who will come up and say, I did not go to school, I did not empower myself because of the choices that were made by someone else? Thank you.
I was waiting for that. I was really waiting for that. And so, verse 3, and let me read this because I am in the church where I fellowship. I have packaged something that I want to share with the men around this proverb that says, the fathers or the parents ate sour grapes and the children's teeth are set on the edge. But as you read further, 3, it says, as surely as I live, declares the sovereign Lord, you will no longer quote this proverb in Israel. For everyone belongs to me, the parent as well as the child. Both alike belong to me. The one who sins is the one who will die. So in other words, now you can see how the faithful God have done, putting accountabilities and responsibilities where it belongs. So in other words, we've got powers, gents, to say, yes, my forefathers might have made a certain decision or a certain choice, my father as well. But I now have powers to sort of make my own decisions and write my own story. You see? And as you are doing that, then God says, no longer shall you now quote the proverb that says, now the fathers ate sour grapes, that is why we are in this position. Yes, they ate sour grapes and the kids paid the price, but God is giving now, all the tools that we're requiring to sort of change our story. So if somebody now is sitting and blaming their forefathers, it's like someone who's still blaming the apartheid. That excuse no longer exists now. That excuse is gone. Acquire knowledge, get more data, and so that you're making your own decisions and write your own book. The reason why, Chair, I did not actually bring different literatures here, I wanted to keep it easy and simple in the subject of choices and not to bring a lot of theories, because life is about making choices every day. You make a choice whether to wake up in that rainy day and go hustle, by the way, gents. Somebody's making a choice to sleep. And the Bible says, he who observes the wind is not going to reap anything. So if you're going to observe the wind and say, the wind is blowing too much, the rain it's very strong, and the storm is there, the Bible says that man will end up doing nothing. You see, when you realize it's 12 o'clock midday, there's no longer a storm. You realize actually it's long gone. The bus is left. So thank you for that question, Pastor Sipo. We can no longer blame it to our forefathers.
Beautiful leadership. Thank you very much. There was a hand up from Ubaba Vilani. I don't know if their hand is down because he's answered or he still has something to say. Leadership Bongani Kaba, I'm coming to you. Bonile Baba, I've observed you. Baba Vilani.
Thank you very much, leadership. Greetings to everyone. I don't know if I'm audible.
I can hear you. Go ahead, Liz.
Oh, yeah, no, it's okay. I am partly answered by Archbishop, presiding bishop. It's just that I needed more clarity when it comes to, when circumstances coerce someone into making very wrong choices because of the stance of their lives. So he has answered to say we can no longer make excuses. So you frequently find in a courtroom when someone is incarcerated, perhaps for committing some minor crimes, they would ask, why did you commit the crime? And they would say, I am poor, I do not have anything to eat, I cannot sustain myself. And then the lawyer would make their prayers. To say,
can you mute, please?
And then the lawyer would make their prayers to say, your worship, this person is underprivileged, this person does not have benefits from the society, so this is how he makes a living. So it can be justified so that the person can get less sentence, you see. But is it allowed? Is it permissible? Is it socially correct for people to commit crimes because of their circumstances and be justified in a courtroom and ending up receiving a lesser sentence? So that was my question around that, to say, can choices be justified if I commit them for right reasons in my personal benefit? Thank you.
Thank you, leadership. Leadership, Mandlazi.
So thank you for this. What I want to say around this is that you, and I'm looking for a proper word to sort of share with this thing. I was watching a program, the acting minister in the presidency was asked just now after looting. And the question was, so how does the government feel by sending SAPs and soldiers, you know, to go and confiscate and collect all the food which was looted from the poor? That person is poor. The answer which the lady gave was, we are sleeping well at night because this government has made 350 rands available for every person who is unemployed in this country, so that they cannot make the wrong decisions, such as going and loot. If you also can just borrow from the, you know, what we have seen, Mr. Villani, in the unrest of the country in the past few weeks. Those guys went and started looting. They took all these things and they came, we are hungry, we don't have food, and all those type of things. And they felt justified, and other people, you know, started justifying those guys. But see what has happened after that. Operation Keep Asleep. Is because you have no reason whatsoever to justify any wrong. The only thing that I can say, or the last thing in that comment, is that every choice that you make, it has got its own consequences, whether good or bad. And that is important for me, I think, Chair, to leave in the mind of our colleagues here. Every choice that you make, our consequences are whether good or bad. So therefore, collect enough data so that when you're making a choice, you should be comfortable to live with the consequences that comes after. I'm going to leave it there.
Beautiful. Thank you, leadership. Leadership, Sifiso Koza, the platform is all yours, Bob. Leadership, Sifiso, unmute yourself, Bob. The platform is all yours.
Good afternoon, leaders.
Yeah, this line is horrible. Leadership, keep talking. Let's hear if you can finish your question. Yeah, can you try get the network? Your line is bad. In the meantime, we'll go to Ubaba Klaba.
Yes, best leader. I'm not. Can the leaders get me? Hello.
Yes, leadership. Try ask your question quickly. Your line is bad.
I'm not sure if I'm audible. I'm trying to move around here.
Yes, we can hear you now. Go ahead. Go ahead. Leader.
Perfect. I thank you very much, Chairperson of this session, and I want to appreciate the presenter, the presiding bishop, for a wonderful presentation that he has given to us. The take home now is that don't burn your opportunities for a temporal comfort. It reminds me of someone who decided to bend down the ladder in order to accommodate the winter moment. But I wanted to also amplify on what the presiding bishop has said with regards to the question that the chairperson asked. That the difference between the choices and the decision are not always clearly visible. However, in a counseling session, when a person comes through, I would take an example for an HIV test space where a person has come in for voluntary counseling and testing your VCT. And the counselor would sit with you and present a number of choices. before you, as and when you would have tested, and then the first statement would have said your life would not be the same immediately after this session, because you would be knowing your status of HIV, whether you are positive or negative. But immediately after that, you would also be expected, based on the outcome of your results, you will be presented with a number of choices on which you are supposed to decide. So the success of a human being, I just want to emphasize this, what the presiding bishop has said, that the success of a human being depends on the choices that a human being makes. So now, if I were to be successful in any sphere of life, in any area of my operations, it will definitely be dependent on the choices that I would have, the decision that I would have made after I have been presented with choices. So all the speakers that have spoken precisely, and in response to those questions, the presiding bishop was spot on to say, it is all is available, but not everything is allowed. Everything is there on the table, but not everything is permissible for us to indulge on. So therefore, the success of a person lies in their ability to make a decision after choices have been presented to them, because in everything that you would do, you see when he counted to President Bishop said, it is important to make a decision based on informed choices and informed positions. So unless you are informed of all the choices that are available, you won't be able to make a decision. So definitely these two concepts are interrelated. However, the most prevailing one would be the decision. So the decision that you make determines your altitude. You see. I mean, let me park there perhaps for now, Chairperson.
Thank you, leadership. Thank you, leadership Sifiso. Noted, Bob. Leadership Kaba, the platform is yours, Bob. I know you've been waiting for a while. Just unmute yourself and dwell into it.
Good evening, leadership. Can you hear me clearly?
Loud and clear, Bob. Loud and clear.
Okay. First things first, I'd like to thank SALGC again for another powerful session. And I'd like to acknowledge my leader, Bishop Mandlazi. I've served under him back even from tertiary and even in church sphere. So I just acknowledge my leader. It's been a privilege to hear you talk again. As you said, when you started your talk, you said you need to acknowledge or recognize the mentors who've contributed in our journey. So this is me just acknowledging leadership Mandlazi. I've got two questions, leadership. The first one, you spoke about, and you've touched on this a lot more. You said, don't act too hastily. How do I deal with the danger of this being construed as procrastination? It can either be in the social sphere or like in a life or in business, let's say as a manager. I'm taking my time, I'm gathering my data, and then other people view this as I'm procrastinating. How do I deal with that? The second question, or it's your view. You've led a few youth forums leadership, and in the context of you saying that we need to put in the work or work on God's eternal promises instead of immediate pleasure. What's your view on the younger generation now? The reason why I'm saying this, when you speak to the young guys, they want immediate riches. They want immediate wins. They would, instead of going to study, they would rather go do trading just to make the money now. How do you deal with that? And because these will be the fathers of the future. That's my two questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Good to see you again, Nonkosi. Very exciting to see you again indeed. Let me start with the latter. I am a mentor and a business coach. And as a mentor, I have a lot of graduates whom I am mentoring in the country, in Cape Town, Johannesburg, Durban, and all those. And I spend most of my time dealing with the subject of patience with them, the subject of waiting and the beauty of waiting. And I draw from my own personal experiences, because By the way, the issue of waiting, wanting quick things, it is for everyone. Whether you go to, the grown-ups, you go to female males, people want quick things in nature. But let me just tell you what I do with the graduates. There was one gentleman I was employed with when I started working, just after because I started working in my first year, he was already graduated. When we went there, they gave us blue overalls and they said, you're gonna go and offload the truck. And that guy said, I have an honors degree in marketing. I cannot be offloading that truck. I'm out of here. He left. I was left behind. I took the overalls and I did exactly what I was asked to do. Few months later, I was the guy who was in the office. He is unemployed. Why? He did not have patience. The art of waiting was an issue for him. So there are things which calls for time. When you cook, there is a certain type of meal which no matter how hurry you are, you cannot enjoy this in 5 minutes. There are other types of meals that you can enjoy in 5 minutes. I think that methodology should apply in that context. And I want to answer this together with your former question around, can this be confused with me procrastinating? When I went for an interview for a big job to be a director in Africa, they asked me my weaknesses. They said, what was your weaknesses and your biggest failure? And I said, one of my weaknesses is that sometimes I take long to make a decision. And they wanted an example. I gave them the example why I took long. It turned out that I was more respected because I spend most of my time applying my mind. And when I start executing, nothing can stop me because I just move like that. I don't just, think and want to do it now. I want enough data. And once I have collected that data and now I start executing, nothing is going to stop me because I am very clear on what I'm doing. I'm comfortable. I am on fire. So to procrastinate is another thing in my view, you see. And I hope I have sort of answered you there, Mr. Klaba.
Thank you, leadership. Never.
Beautiful. Thank you, my leader. Please put your hands down so that when you raise it again, we should be able to pick up that it's another question. So there's a question here in the chat box, my leader, and from the Iron Lady. Here's what I'll do. It's I don't think I'll do justice reading it. I will give you CCE platform so that you can ask it. Can I do that? The Iron Lady?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Please.
Thank you very much. Okay. Thank you so much, Chair. Firstly, I apologize for that disturbance whilst the other speaker was speaking. That was rude. I'm sorry. But my question is, I think it does come back a little bit to what I've asked before. I'm saying I am sitting here with a hospital date where I'm due to go for a very major operation. I'm okay to say it's a 15th laparotomy, which the doctors feel it's risky, but it has to be done. And I'm sitting here as a Christian. Those who know, they know, a person who really prays and believes in God. I pray to God to find out what is the answer here. I'm not hearing him speak. I have my brothers and my sisters, some of them in the house, who do know about my situation, who says it's okay, or who says you can't go for it. Let's take it to God in prayer. I'm here struggling with the I think the pains from whatever that is happening, and I don't know what to decide because I've got the church that is saying it's okay, you just give it to God in prayer. But it's a life-threatening thing that needs to be done, and I know what I'm going through, and I still trust in God, and I have to make this choice if I'm going to the theater or not. Now, my question is, in that instance where it's not something that's really voluntarily or whatever, you want to do what's right, and the only thing now, these two levels are contradicting each other, where the physicians and what my Christian fellow brothers, and maybe the culture, because my grandmother said to me, you must never cut yourself. You do it once, you're going to do it over and over. That's where I was asking, when you have to make a decision on that place where these things which are around or you're hearing are so conflicting, what do we do? Thank you.
Good question.
I would start by praying for those people first. I think I'll pray for them first. Those who are saying I mustn't, I think they need prayer first, those folks. You see, the earth is the Lord and everything in it. Lento yama doctors neza nosi in we've seen this thing in the scripture. They existed long before us. And I must remind you, those two men there, were they two? I can't even remember how many were they. You know, we preach about these guys every time. They said, if we sit here, we die. If we go in, we die. So let's just go because we're going to die. Let's go at once. Anyway, I would always, and I'm always warning, you know, Abazalwane around this thing. Doctors are there. God knows about doctors. You see? And so when I am due to go to hospitals, my role and the task as the church is to pray that nothing should go wrong. Nothing foreign should find residence in the body of the beloved. So that's my attitude and my prayer. And I would really encourage you to say, you've got to adopt that mentality and say, Father, the earth is the Lord. You knew doctors, you knew my life. If I'm going in there, I'm only praying that nothing foreign should be deposited in my body and just give me a total, you know, healing. If those doctors doesn't know any better, give them now that wisdom so that they are able to operate and work on my body. But I wouldn't keep somebody at home and say, wait for, because what you're doing is they are walking very slowly to their death. That's what it is. You know, you can't put God under pressure for miracle, Bazalwan. Miracle, that is why it is called miracle. You can't decide on it and say, God, I've been praying for 40 days. Now I'm due for a miracle. Give me a miracle. No, you can't put God under pressure for a miracle. You see, miracle come when it comes. As God wills, he's going to give a miracle. As he desires to give a miracle. So that is why even in all the other churches, I have some reservations to, you know, even call it a day. It's a hour of miracles, was miracles, because my understanding of a miracle, that is why it is called a miracle. Umhlolo wenzeka unexpected. You can't schedule umhlolo. Let me schedule a miracle. I don't understand that. So, Sister Musa, pray, go to hospitals and call on us to pray for you whilst you are going there. Ungamlingi usathane, ungamlingi uNkulunkulu. I'm done, Chair, answering Sister Musa before I get even more excited about this question.
Thank you very much. No, thank you very much, Presiding Bishop. It just opened my eye to a different dimension as well, that we of us who are spiritual, there is a great level where education should be adjusted because we are so much into competition. That's the reason that all these things end up contradicting each other, and they should not. And the reality is, for instance, you said you've got a spiritual father and you're going to acknowledge him. Assuming that was my spiritual father who says to me, if you're under my ministry, these things we can pray, we prophesy. You see, what? So it's not only about my personal situation now, which is real at the present moment, but I'm just saying that there is a level that we need to penetrate also of making sure that when people have made choices to believe in whatever it is, let our religion, our culture, whatever, don't just crash because it makes so much. And I'm going to quickly jump before I go out, that we've got a lot of people who are misled under the umbrella of Christianity on what choices to make because of what has been taught, which is not getting neutral enough to accommodate everything. So there's people who would really die with sicknesses and they don't go to, and we know these are happening. And because the topic touched on that, I'm glad that it touched on a leader, and I'm sure that sometime we're going to have the time to look at this and make it, because we've got a grave that is solid people prematurely because they wanted to say, I choose this God and I stick with him, and this is what I want to do and what we are saying. So there is education that's required. But thank you so much. I'm going to definitely come to you for prayer. Thank you, Chair.
Beautiful.
Shalom.
Thank you, Sister the Iron Lady. Thank you, leadership, for the good response. Ungamlingi uNkulunkulu. A miracle, it's not scheduled, it's a miracle, as the word says. Uzinhle Ramashala says here, you can't schedule a miracle. I think bravo, Bishop. He's just called, re-emphasizing what you mentioned. This session is good miracle for sure. That's Portia TDG, everyone. She says this session is God's miracle. Definitely, that's what she says. Sfiso says the strongest principle of growth lies in human choices. I think he's quoting there, as he says, George Eliot. So as we go along, beautiful, beautiful questions and wonderful responses. We're learning as we go along. I must say this is a very, very important session. Incredible indeed. It is recorded. It will be found on our the club YouTube channel and on the website. You'll find the recordings there for those who miss it or who want to go over and over it to get what they could have possibly missed. If there's any other question, I'm here. Let's hear questions, comments. Leaders, can you check for me on Facebook if there's any comments there? Seemingly there's no response on the Facebook comments issue. Any other question? Who has no? Yeah, yes, my leader.
Yeah, I think most of the comments is like great discussion and lots of take home by Tumedem Teboho, and then Hokli Sutu, very powerful indeed. What a weight. Those are the ones that I have for now.
Oh, okay. And yeah, there's a very important part of your slide that you said, Lapa leadership. Make choices which value relationships over rights. So can you elaborate on that? I know you've spoken to it, but if we talk ambiguously about choices which make relationships, which value relationships, it could be the relationship with somebody who's putting the bread on my table. We have seen that a few years back when votes had to be made about the scandal in Nkandla. People were told to vote and follow and toe the line. So if we are not getting confused, we want to make it clear. What would you say to clarify that further?
So, Chair, I have put this, to suggest to the gents here that sometimes we must make choices indeed that will value relationships as opposed to overriding. And I will maybe make a few comments on that. Let us keep it practical whilst we're here on earth, Lento Yama relationship. Have you seen a person who comes to you just by virtue of knowing you, you attending the same church, after 3 weeks of knowing you, they come to borrow money from you? Have you seen those people? If you haven't seen, I'm living here on earth, I've seen those people. I mean, Paul says, Chair, we cared for you, we loved you enough that we did not only give you the gospel, but we shared our lives with you as well. So now this is the issue of relationship, to say, as much as I'm giving you the gospel, but I must be prepared to share my life and space with you and protect and build winning relationships. So now there's the other person that I want to tell you about. I'm going to close on this one. The other person is, you have now made it with clerk. God, gave you an opportunity to work as a clerk somewhere. You are earning 7,500. Now you think those other people in your family, that doesn't matter no longer. You're no longer valuing people simply because you have the little that God has trusted you with. You are now placing self-importance over relationships, and you are now trampling over winning relationships, and you are destroying relationships. I have put that because I wanted to suggest to the man here that in the issue of choices, please think about relationships, because families is about relationships. God come to operate through people, through relationships. He wants us to connect and win and, be able, by the way, to support one another, to coexist. So I wanted just to pass that thinking, Chair, to say, before uzagimi uzoboleka imali, ake uziphi isikhathi to work with me, ungazi yabo ungijwayele, and protect the relationship. Before uzofuna nje izinto, work on the relationship.
Amen.
The issue of relationship, Chair, issue ukuthi, when you were in trouble, I was there. I stood with you. When you were lacking something, I was there to share that which I have. When you lost your child, I was the first to arrive at your home and say, condolences. Now, therefore, the relationship has graduated into a level where I know that when I am crying, I have someone that can listen. When you did not invest into working into these relationships, but you want voices to listen to you already. No, start by working these relationships, and just make sure that you don't destroy them. I think that is what I wanted to suggest, Chair, and I'm very passionate about the issue of families and relationships, because this is where the devil is targeting the church and people. He is destroying relationships until he is fully isolated to you. Once you are isolated alone, then he's going to come and hit on you. So I'm going to stop there, Chair, around this, and I hope that I have done a little bit of justice into your question there.
Beautiful perspective. You did actually give it justice. Uzintle and arise and shine, says Lana. Great. Exactly what do we? Oh, the comment is going fast. Exactly what do we? What we do with God? We go wanting but not willing to know Him. And then Ulav Lazy and Alana Uti. From my view through, I always regarded choices as a spiritual departure and decisions as a conceptual thought. That's Lavday, Lapaya, and Uzintle comes back and say, perhaps we were never taught how to build relationships because it was not modeled at home. Nevertheless, it is my responsibility to acquire knowledge and change the mindset. Beautiful question. Response comment today. Would you have something to say there, leadership?
Correct. So, and I think this is the space of what SALGC is trying to close. SALGC is trying to close that gap. We're trying to make information available to people. We try not to complicate it. We're trying to say exactly what we have quoted in Ezekiel 18, verse 3, to say, no longer shall you now blame it to your parents and say, well, they ate the sour grapes and that is why I'm in this situation. Now you've got to start saying, if I were to write my own story, what is it that I need in order to write well and to write a meaningful story? I think this is what we are doing spot on. Gather information, gather information, gather information.
Wonderful. You cannot overemphasize that. Beautiful. There's a hand of Portia TDG. Portia, can you unmute yourself? Oh, I assume good Portia is a she. Please unmute yourself and jump into it.
Thank you, leadership. Thank you, Bishop, for such a beautiful presentation today. It got me thinking about a quote that I love very much. I found it a few years ago, and I wanted to share it with everyone here. I'm going to read it as I have it. It says that a choice is the most powerful tool we have. Everything boils down to choice. We exist in a field of infinite possibilities. Every choice we make shuts an infinite number of doors and opens an infinite number of doors. At any point, we can change the direction of our lives by a simple choice. It is all in our hands, our hearts, and our mind. Now, from this code that I found, as I say, many years ago, I then learned and realized that actually even when we don't think about it, we are still making a choice. And earlier you were talking about what is the difference between a choice and a decision. And I think it's easy for us. Okay, my understanding is that a decision is then the actual act you take, which comes from the choices that you'd be choosing, basically different options that you'd be having to say, okay, I'm now deciding to go with this option. But what I wanted to add is every day we make choices and we make decisions. Because we mostly do not want to deal with the consequences or accept that there's going to be consequences, for the little decisions that we make it seem like we're not making a decision or we're not making a choice. But in fact, in everything almost that we do, we are making a choice. And I think this is why I loved this quote where it says that we are opening doors to infinite possibilities, because it can be a choice of either robot deciding to go left or right. It seems like a simple decision, you know, but it is a choice you're making. It's a decision you're making to say, I'm taking this direction. And that direction leads you to a certain path, probably where you are going, you know, but you've made that decision. But as I say, because we don't think about it as consciously making a decision, then we think we're not making a decision, you know? But yes, our lives, there's just many choices. And at the end of the day, whether we like it or we don't, we are making choices, we are making decisions, you know? And we dwell so much on ways, major decisions that we have to make, thinking that what are the possibilities and, you know, what are the consequences and all of that. But still what remains is that at the end of the day, whatever decision or whatever choice we are taking, we are shutting down certain paths and roads, and then we are taking a certain road that also opens up certain paths and roads that, you know, we will encounter on our path. So that's basically what I wanted to share. To the lady, the Iron Lady, you know, as I say that whichever direction, you know, one takes, at the end of the day, it shuts certain things out and then it opens certain things up. So whether you're going to the hospital or not going, the fact still remains, it shuts certain doors and then it opens whichever path you decide. It's shutting certain decisions, certain paths, and it's opening up certain doors. So it's a tough one, but I believe that God gives us the wisdom, and we just have to accept sometimes when I've made a decision, it might not go the way that I had wished, but at the end of the day, I had made that decision. And I made it with all that I knew. Whether I did the research or I just made an instant decision, at the end of the day, as I'm making that decision, it's based on, at that moment in time, this is what I know, and this is the path I'm taking. Thank you, Chair.
You are on mute, Chair, you are on mute. Boti, you are on mute, please. If you can just unmute yourself.
Yeah, thank you. Sorry about that. Sorry about that. Thank you so much. I'm saying we are at the end of our lecture today that you did diligently and absolutely beautiful. I'm just going to give it to you now that you must just give it your parting shot, last comment, and the message that we should take home with. Over to you, my leader.
Thank you very much, Chair. I have only one sentence. Choose life so you may live. You and your generations, be prepared to live with the consequences of the choices that you make. And now start thinking about not only you, there are decisions which are going to excite you now, give you pleasure immediately, but who else is going to be affected by the choice and the decision that you are making? Whatever, you know, or however is going to affect them, is it affecting them positively or negatively? If it's negatively, then reconsider. Thank you very, very much for making it into this session. May the good Lord be with all of you. Choose life so you may live. Thank you, Chair.
Beautiful. Thank you, leadership. Go well and send our regards to your